Hey cartoon fans, on October 18th, 1969, the 6th episode of Scooby-Doo Where Are You? What the Heck's Going On? Aired, and it's a underrated gem of the show that many forget about, even though most of the scenes in the iconic Haunted Mansion were used in the intro of each episode of Scooby-Doo Where Are You? But what is perhaps the biggest impact of this episode is that the writers finally knew what they wanted for Scooby. Sure, I'm just guessing, but this one definitely found its footing for the gang, as What the Heck's Going On is such a classic episode of Where Are You for so many reasons, like the plot of the ghost of Elias Kingston in the Kingston Mansion, which, fun fact, was inspired by the Collinwood Mansion from the 1960s horror soap opera Dark Shadows, which is based off of the real Seaview Terrace Mansion in Rhode Island. It's crazy to look at this and see how much it looks like the Kingston Mansion from this episode. On top of that, the background art mainly done by Walt Paragoy, and personally these guys are so underrated, as Walt did the backgrounds for classic Disney movies before working on Hanna-Barbera, and his backgrounds are so good in this episode. Plus, the music directed by Ted Nichols of Johnny Quest in the Flintstones fame brought the spooky background music to the front of the episode, much like in What a Night for a Night. These talented people are just some of the mainly uncredited artists who worked on Scooby-Doo Where Are You? If you want to know more about these people, I highly recommend you check out NerdSync's video on the background art and artists of Scooby-Doo Where Are You? It's a great watch after this video, of course. So with all that said, let's find out why What the Heck's Going On is a underrated staple of the original franchise that is frankly spooky. Our episode begins with an eerie shot of the Kingston Mansion and an even more terrifying pan over to a graveyard in which we see a middle-aged man walking like a zombie, hearing the words of the wind. And man, what an opening. It really shows the background art I was just talking about in great effect. We see the Mystery Machine zoom past as the gang are on their way to the Weatherby estate, as their one-time friend Sharon Weatherby invited them over. And on the way, they see the same man from the intro go into the Kingston Mansion. When they arrive to the estate, which doesn't look much better than the Haunted Mansion, Mr. Weatherby tells the gang about the mysterious sounds they've been hearing and the disappearance of their Uncle Stuart. And the gang think that the man they saw go into the mansion was the family's missing uncle. And upon arriving to the Kingston Mansion, they find Uncle Stuart transformed into an old man. They all go back to the Weatherbys, and Stuart tells them a wild tale about how the ghost of Elias Kingston put an old age hex on the family because he wants their fortune, and got Stuart to show he wasn't kidding around. Sharon's dad goes to call the sheriff, but the phone is dead, so Mr. Weatherby goes to get the sheriff, while the gang keep the night watch on old Uncle Stuart. And that doesn't go well, as the cries of the ghost hypnotize him to go back to the mansion. And so the gang go investigate the mansion to find Uncle Stuart and their friend, and maybe even the ghost. And man, the detailed backgrounds on the insides for both mansions are amazing. Never mind the sound cues, which once again proves my point from the beginning. Anyway, the gang arrive and walk around inside, or in Shaggy's case, roller skates.
Why are you wearing those silly things?
I'm not taking any chances. If we do see that ghost, he'll never catch me.
And well, they didn't work as planned when the ghost pushes Shaggy into the bathroom. Then we see Scooby find the kitchen when he has a run-in with a watchdog. But why would a ghost need a watchdog, as Velma questions that when the gang meet up after a few more shenanigans.
If there's one thing I can't stand, it's taking a bath in a haunted house.
And so, after finding that clue, the gang find an even bigger one. The corpse of Uncle Stuart propped up in a chair. So there's now a supposed death in this kid's cartoon. On top of that, earlier we saw Sharon hidden away with the ghost, making her fate uncertain. Especially when our monster can rapidly age people. Which really gets at this episode feeling almost like the old horror films that the show was drawing inspiration from. There's also a super grim feel to the whole mystery, which feels like there could be actual danger involved with solving it. I think Hanna-Barbera realized they were playing with fire a bit with the spookiness, so they added some gags to lighten things up, like Shaggy's roller skates and the gang's next clue.
Groovy, what is it? Him.
The ghost of Kingston warns the gang that he's gonna curse them and just walks away. No, I'm not joking, look at this guy. And while he spooks some of the gang, they aren't really threatened or scared of the ghost, because besides his powers, he really isn't that spooky of a guy. Looks like the Blue Man Group fired a member or something. Anyways, the gang follow after him outside toward the estate cemetery, because of course there's one. And they do a little more detective work to find the ghost's fingerprints on the mausoleum door. Inside, they find a book on crystallomancy, or crystallomacy, but get trapped when the ghost locks them in. But the gang, of course, find a crazy, strange secret door, which leads to them leaving at night to the old Swami place in town.
It looks like the Swami's out swammying somewhere else.
Except for a customer who comes in to get her palm read, and Scooby sure does that with the help of Shaggy, who froze his voice like he did in the first episode, which is a rare bit of continuity on the show. Anyways, after dealing with that customer, another one shows up, but he's already inside as the table flies in the air with the ghost on the crystal ball. This is insane! Yeah, this is pretty goofy, as when Scooby and the table crash, they find that it was ran by a fan under the table. With that, they look around some more and find a makeup kit and a TV camera, which they use for the trap back at the Kingston mansion. Once there, the boys trick the blue guy with a fake treasure chest, with the family fortune inside. And well, he's not happy, so the chase is on, and after rage baiting the ghost, they use the cameras to confuse and scare our monster in a very funny way, which shows how much of a joke this villain really is.
This place is really haunted!
Not to mention this.
How did that get here?
It's hilarious, and well, he gets caught in a net to be revealed as Uncle Stewart. The gang explains that he wanted to swindle his family out of the Weatherby fortune, so when Sharon saw his old makeup come off, she got kidnapped. But I don't know how that could help him in his plan because he's the one getting older. So if it appears that he died, then how is he gonna get the fortune? But that's whatever, because there's food to be served for saving the day. But of course, Scooby ate it all.
Scooby-Doo!
What the Heck's Going On is a crucial episode for Scooby-Doo, Where Are You? The writers were going heavier with the spooky nature, but evening everything out with the gags and villain. And speaking of which, Kingston is pretty unique. He's not really based on anything, which shows early on that the writers weren't gonna just base every villain off of something that's already popular and experiment a bit. And sure, this guy is not a good monster at all, but he's not the worst. And the episode itself is very well paced and executed, and I wish more people knew about this one. So if you haven't seen it, go watch it. And with that said, I'm gonna give What the Heck's Going On 4 Kingstons out of 5. So what do you think of What the Heck's Going On? Do you think it's underrated or underappreciated? Let me know everything down in the comments below. Consider subscribing to join this cartoon community. And that's all for today's video. See ya!